Welcome back to the Forbidden Mountain. Today we're going to be going over the meta report once again for Core Constructed. That's right, set championships have started, and honestly, there's a lot of different decks that you can be playing, and I think that's the most exciting. But it's also a little crazy. For those of you that haven't really been paying attention to the market, well, Woody, this set champs card is like, I don't know, 400 bucks. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, if you've been like kind of avoiding set championships because the promos aren't worth it, that's just like not the case for this set. So it's absolutely worth it to probably check out your Robinsburger Play Hub, click drivable set champs, see which ones are in the area. I've heard of a couple this weekend that only had 8 players, which means people showed up, paid their entry fee, got a Woody, and yeah, totally made out for it. So absolutely worth playing in set championships. You got to. Listen, I can't preach this enough. You have to support the local game stores. Without them, this game and its competitive scene will start falling off more and more and more. And we just, if you want to play games, if you're watching a video like this and you're learning about the meta and you're trying to stay up to date, like, this is the exact reason why you take this information and go play in set championships. Go play in those local 1Ks, those local 2Ks, and things like that, because we need the game to survive at a competitive level in, the local game stores. It's very important for us to succeed, I think, long-term as a card game. So, yeah, Woody's way up in price. Definitely worth it, and hopefully in this video today, we're going to go over 10 decks, and one of these decks can bring you a Mickey just like it brought someone else. Not a Mickey, a Woody, my bad. Let's get into those decks. There we go. We have 10 decks to top 8 your set champs with. Lots of fun options today. Of course, we're going to take a quick look at the online data because I think it's really important. If you really talk about this, is the best of 3 win rate data from Duel Inc. It's filtered to 100 or more games. So we are looking at a meaningful sample sizes. At the very top, Amber Amethyst sits with 54.2% across 32,000 games. This is the most important, the most played and one of the best performing in combinations in the format right now. If you see this across from you at Set Champs, you need to have that plan. Right behind it is Amethyst Sapphire at 53.5. That's your Blurple decks, 25,000 games. A lot of data, right? This is a lot of kind of like representation within the metagame. So these are the 2 decks that if you go to a set championships, you are going to be playing against them. Of course, Amber Emerald is 52.8%. The Eleanor Dogs is really kind of like the forefront of that, ever since a couple weekends ago when it won a 200-player side event. And of course, Eleanor coming out from the CCQ a couple weekends as well. So this is another big thing. But, you've got roughly a 50-50 range for Emerald Sapphire and Amethyst Steel, Amber Steel, and even Amethyst Ruby. They're all essentially coin flips, maybe a little bit more skill and preparation. If that's like the deck that you're like, if that's the deck that you feel the most, then it's probably the deck that you're going to be really excited about playing. Aside from that, if we look at the matchup breakdowns, if you know what your metagame looks like, if you know what your locals are into, then it's a little easier for you to kind of like walk in through that. So as we take a even deeper dive, this is of course the 8x8, right? These are the best 8 decks going against the best 8 decks. Amber Amethyst is strong across the board, 62% against Amethyst Sapphire, 58% against Amethyst Steel, and Amethyst Ruby. But notice that it's 39% against Amber Emerald, which is dogs. So, like, if the best players in the room are playing dogs, then you're unlikely to win the set champs. But, like, the good news about this is that I think what's really kind of, like, the most important thing to figure out is that the difference of winning the set champs and top 8ing the set champs is just the playmat, and the playmat is not worth anywhere near just top 8ing. So as long as you're playing a deck that you're comfortable with, that you can play into the field and be successful with, that's what you should be doing. So if you like Amber Amethyst, if you like Sapphire Amethyst, like, just play those decks. Even Emerald Sapphire, right? Like, Emerald Sapphire is another one. Like, if you just like Emerald Sapphire, if you've been playing that for all of core, like, just keep playing that. It'll be okay, I promise. But if you take a look at this and you can see across the board here what kind of the matchup ratios are. If you're a Blurple fan, you have to understand the most played deck is Amethyst Emerald, and it's kind of, it's kind of really good into Blurple. So you got to be weary of that. But you have a much better chance into dogs, which is a big deal. You're obviously a little less favored against Emerald Sapphire, but against the rest of the field, all the, the Amethyst Steels, the Amber Steels, the Amethyst Rubies, and Amber Rubies, like, those decks you're also good into. So you're taking a hit on a couple of matchups, but you're overall pretty good. And you have a more likely chance to win the tournament because you're favored into the dogs matchup, which again, I personally feel that a lot of the better players in the room are playing dogs because it's a deck that they've been playing for quite some time and it's still very well positioned. Of course, Emerald Sapphire comes in looking the same way. A couple 55% into the Amethyst decks at the top. Not so great into the dogs matchup, but absolutely has win opportunities. I actually lost. One of my only match losses of the weekend was to an Emerald Sapphire this past weekend, so it can definitely happen. And then you do fall off to these Amethyst Steel and Amber Steel decks. I think these more aggressive decks are clearly the problems. If Amethyst Steel is leaning towards the aggro, if Amber Steel Toys is leaning towards aggro, and if Dogs is aggro, that's clearly where you're showcasing, like, okay, maybe I have to make a couple decision points, like how many John Silvers am I playing, how many Underseas am I playing, how many of the combo, like all those things, because those are what's going to lead you to more losses. But I think that that's like an educated choice that you can make. If you know what your metagame is, then you can kind of plan out like those, like the number of cards that are required for you to be a little bit better in those matchups. Specifically, if you know, like, hey, these are some of the better players in the room, I need to give myself a little bit more edge. I definitely think that it's possible. So like, don't just give up on it. Is really what I'm at here. Of course, you know, if you're an Amethyst Steel fan, it doesn't look great into the other Amethyst decks, but it does feel pretty good into the rest of the field. So if it's a deck that you've been playing for a while, maybe you can still pick it up and still enjoy it. And then of course we have Amber Steel Toys, which looks like a train wreck into the Amethyst decks. Really, really difficult there. So it's a little bit worrisome that if you're an Amethyst heavy field, and Amethyst is like a real potent choice in the metagame, that maybe bringing Amber Steel is pretty tough unless you know the metagame pretty well, but it is a new deck. It's kind of fun. We're going to be showcasing that as one of them. And of course, Amethyst Ruby and Amber Ruby are really close in similarity. The biggest difference is the Emerald Sapphire matchup, but aside from that, it's like kind of all the same. So it's really just like a choice dependent of like what is the flavor of Ruby that you would like to play is kind of where I would be with that. Now, going into it, moving forward, let's talk about the Eleanor Dogs. Now, this is the deck that I piloted to a win this weekend. It's also a deck that my teammate Nate piloted to a win this weekend. It's a one-card difference of a deck that both Melissa and Alex went 6-0 and 5-1 at the competitive core side events in Dortmund this past weekend. So, like, this is a very proven deck over this weekend, with literally the only one card difference here is a Pluto to a Lady. So like, aside from that, it's a 59 card exact replica. I decided to test Pluto this weekend because I wanted to be a little more aggressive on my openings into Eleanor. And yeah, it all works out. It's all very powerful. But this deck is, without a shadow of a doubt, an Eleanor deck. I mean, like, the game plan is beautifully simple. You curve out, you tramp, you lady, you get your bigger guys out there, you just continuously pour to the game, and what Eleanor has given us is this ability to continuously keep cards in our hand. The biggest factor in, like, the previous metagame was the addition of Nani. Nani being able to come into play and pick you a card back up on a 3/3 body was just so significant. But now we can do that again on a 3/4 body that also does damage and gains you a lore. So like, the turn you play Eleanor, she has the potential to really swing the tempo of the game and continue your draw engine. Yeah, this card's just insane. The card's very powerful. I talked about it at length a couple weeks ago when we were discussing, you know, core decks that you can get into. But this deck, to me, is, without a shadow of a doubt, if you are the best player in the tournament, likely you should just be playing dogs, especially if it's a deck that you've already been playing. If you're just looking to give yourself the best chance to top cut, it's a deck that you're already familiar with. I don't think there's a lot of reasons to not play this deck. I think that even this weekend into Sapphire Amethyst, I was undefeated. I did not lose a match against them. Against Amber Ruby, I did not lose a match against them. I did lose a match to Emerald Sapphire, but it came at the cost of like me basically having one of the worst on the play games I've had in like the core constructed season that I've been playing, where I never quested for 3-bit lady. I basically whiffed with a Nani. I had an Eleanor in my hand that couldn't trigger. So like, the layer of things that had to happen in the game for me to lose was really high variance. And I think that on average, if we played 3 more games, I might have won 3 more games type scenario. So it's definitely a possibility that this deck will falter, but at the same time, it's also the same potential that the deck just runs the tournament. So to me, this is the best deck in the format. I think that you have the opportunity to have the biggest potential blowouts. I think you're actually the better under the sea deck than Emerald Sapphire, and I think that you have the ability to turn on or off and like really manipulate your game plan to every single matchup in the metagame. So yeah, like when you're talking about what this deck can do and everything this deck represents, I think that it just has kind of like this everything bagel. I wrote about it on Twitter, but like there's all this conversation about what should we ban, what card is too good, it should be tramp, yada yada yada. I think the answer is going to be Grandmother Willow. I just think Grandmother Willow gives everything that this deck is doing so much more potential that it's actually insane. And I think it's quite similar to other decks that if like you really want to abuse Grandmother Willow, you could. I just think that her smooth the way ability is just so repeatable that it's just unfair and kind of like unfit to the format, that it's the reason why this deck is actually so powerful. And honestly, with the addition of Eleanor, my hottest take of the world is that the moment we rotate and we lose Tramp, it'll be like, yeah, Tramp was cool, but I don't care. Like, this deck is no longer a Tramp deck. It is an Eleanor deck. The best thing you can be doing on turn 3 is playing an Eleanor. It's not playing a Tramp. So, once people realize that, and even if in a world where they ban Tramp, I don't even think it would matter. Like, this deck would still just be insane because you're an Eleanor deck now. Like, the deck is called Eleanor. You know, it's Eleanor Dogs. It's not, you know, Tramp. No, like, it's Eleanor Dogs because she is the face. She is the engine of the deck now. So, yeah, I think that for me, if you're going to ban any single card in core format and maybe even in rotation, obviously it's a little hot take now, but like even in rotation, I think that Willow is going to shine and probably be one of the best cards in the format to start. And yeah, maybe we can play cautious and just get rid of that. You know how they banned Hiram like before we started playing Infinity? Yeah, we should just ban Willow before rotation. It might be okay. Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, so back to the decks. This was a good deck. Again, I want to set championships. My teammate Neat won a championships. Alex and Melissa had a phenomenal side event with that. You know, going 6-0, going 5-1. This deck is great. It's very powerful. It's very, to me, one of the more linear versions of this deck. I think the Eleanor created a simplicity for the deck, and that was a really big deal. Moving on, we have Sapphire, Amethyst. So, of course, the key cards here are Demona, Merryweather, and Cheshire Cat. This is a little bit more of a song, addition here because we have the second Star to the Right, which is a card that's been in and out of, I think, these decks for a very long time. I do believe, like, in a world where we're playing cards like Merryweather and we're playing cards like Scuttle and we have all these warded bodies, that second Star to the Right gets a little bit better. And again, if we're in a metagame that's like 55, 60, 70% Amethyst, then drawing 5 cards in those Amethyst mirrors are going to be what separates wins from losses. So I think it's a great card to be including in your deck. Another standout card that's like not highlighted is the Mrs. Incredible, the super stretchy. I think that this is a very versatile card. I was able to watch a mirror match. One of my games ended really quickly, and I sat and I just watched the mirror match that I was sitting next to for Sapphire and Amethyst. And, Mrs. Incredible just ran the game. Like, she came in play and kind of just stayed there forever. Like, having the ability to be evasive, taking out opposing genies, holding damage for Cheshire Cat, holding damage for Belle and things like that. Like, she just does everything you want her to do, and like the moment you don't need her to be evasive, she just turns into a 2-lore threat as well. Kind of just does a lot. I think the card's very, like, one of those cards I think when you were going through the Wilds Unknown sets, you might have just overlooked it and be like, it's probably okay. Like, it's just like a side grade. Like, I actually think it's a much better card than being a side grade. So I think this is a really powerful card in this deck as well. The big thing here that I think is really notable is in the set championships that I played in, we had the Blurple deck that I played against twice, and then I played against another one, but like the Blurple deck I played against twice had Basil's and the Fauna, like both of the fairies. I think that's, Fauna. So both of the fairies both of the characters that have support on them. And the problem with that is that I think that if you go with all of like 8 X1s as your 1-drop slot, there's a good chance that card never does anything because of Eleanor. Like, Eleanor just gets to come into play, you get to quest with your guys, and then banish the support character, and now there's just a Tipo in play going like, oh, what do I do now? Like, now that Elsa comes down, it's like, oh, I only have 2, I actually can't get rid of any of these, like, O3s, like, this is just awkward. Like, so I think that they're a little bit more cautious right now, is that I don't I really don't think you can play 8 of them. If you want to play like 4 of them, I think that makes a lot of sense, which is kind of what we're doing here. But I think you really need to go to that second willpower on your characters. So, and even maybe 3 willpower. Like, I've really thought about the 1 cost Louisa, and of course Royal Guard, which is what we have in this deck. Like, really taking into account that the metagame is shifted to Eleanor, and X1s are in danger. And it's also the same similarity of you have to be careful when you're challenging with characters as well, because you might be challenging characters, and then you're just leaving a character around to get Eleanor picked off anyway. I did this a couple times against Cheshire Cats this weekend, where my opponent thought Cheshire Cat was protected, kept the 3 damage on it, and then I was just able to pick it off with an Eleanor out of my hand. This is going to happen. I think it's something that you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to respect Eleanor, so just be a little bit weird when you're deciding what your 1-cost characters are going to be. Everything else about this deck, I think, is pretty straightforward. You know, the Tigger is great. The Dumbo, it's still a Dumbo deck. It's just phenomenal. The 1-of Sven, I think, is another lean into just saying, like, hey, if my opponent turns their Eleanor sideways, it's the best chance I have at getting rid of it. So having that Sven is great. It's also really powerful into a lot of the metagame. You know, getting rid of opposing genies is huge. It trades well into so many characters in the metagame, and I think Sven's a big A+, even in a world where you could probably make room for playing another one if you wanted to. Outside of that, this deck is clearly powerful. It does have a ton of game into dogs. It does have a ton of game into everything else. Its matchup into Amethyst is a little sketch, but I think it, you know, you can outweigh some of those odds with the second star to the right, and, you know, as long as you're playing well, playing to the board well, not getting blown out by Cheshire Cats and other things like that. Hades looking for a deal, I think, is another one. You just have to accept, like, you got to banish your character more often than give your opponent 2 cards, because since you don't have a board wipe, I think this is really what needs to come up the most often, is that you don't have the board wipe, right? Like, you don't have the Raging Storm, you don't have the Be Prepared, like, you don't have Under the Sea, like, you don't have any of those things. So if your opposing Amethyst players are playing Hades on you, you kind of have to get rid of the card, because, like, what ends up happening is, all right, you get to keep your card, which is cool and all, but then they just get to draw 2 more cards, and they get to go more and more wide, and you don't have the tools to even answer the other 2 cards that you just gave them. So now you have a problem with the 3/4 that's in play, but then you have 2 more cards to also worry about. That's very hard for your deck to really compete with. So I think on average, like, the players that are playing into Hades, unless you're going to, like, literally win the game because of it, right? Like, if you just have, like, oh, I have 18 lore and I have a Hades in play, obviously I'm not going to let them just banish my Hades, right? Like, that's different, right? But I think on, like, in this mid-game, as you're grinding it out, as you're going back and forth with, like, haymakers, giving your opponent 2 cards, I really do think, on average, is worse than keeping your character in play. So just put the card at the bottom of your deck. At least think about it more, you know, with that conversation that we kind of just had. Like, really sit and think, like, hey, is this a card that I can get rid of right now? Or can I really afford to give my opponent 2 cards? I know it's a tough decision, but I think the way this deck operates, you should probably be banishing your card more often than giving your opponent 2 cards. That's kind of my take on this deck. But all in all, deck's a lot of fun. Pretty successful weekend, picking up definitely multiple top 8 woodies. Oh, again, guys, I need to do this. I need to come in real quick. I need to say thank you, right? Like, this is crazy. Last video was a great video, super successful. 99% more views than normal, plus 32 subs from the last video. So it was, like, I believe over 60 or 70 subscribers in that video. And I just want to say thank you so much. Ton of watch time. You guys did support. You did listen. Of course, if you're here, if you're brand new to this one and you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button for me. It helps us get to more Disney Lorcana players and helps us educate more Disney Lorcana players. Again, share with your friends. If you're watching this video, you want to spread some love, you want to help us out, share it with your friends. And of course, if you haven't yet, hit like on the video. It means so much to me that last video was so very successful, because it was something we were talking about, like, hey, 75% of our viewers aren't subscribed, and, like, those numbers are still true, but having 60 plus subscribers from one video looks great, it sounds great, and I seriously thank you for helping us out, and hopefully we can continue to educate you in the best way possible through these meta reports, and of course all about Disney Lorcana. Let's get back into those decks though. So now we have Ruby Amethyst, that's right. Eliza Maza, my god, is this card a menace. Forever Strong, on this 3-cost Inkable, 4 strength, 4 willpower, 1 lore, with the ability Forever Strong, your character's strengths can't be reduced below their printed value. I mean, it's so good, it's so powerful. Of course, she has the Stone by Day mechanic, which if you have 3 or more cards in your hand, she can't ready, that is notable. But yeah, so this character really is the anti-dogs character. She just says, I don't care. I do think that this deck is a little bit for the more experienced player. I think it adds a little bit layers. I think you're going to be playing this deck to target a specific metagame. If your metagame is like, you know what, everyone just heard that dogs is the best deck and they decided to all play dogs, and you bring this to your set champs, guess what? You are going home with a playmat, because this deck ruins, and I do mean that, it ruins it. A couple weeks ago, this is the exact list, I believe, that was won. James, can't remember his last name right now, but James won the CCS a couple weekends ago with this exact 60 card list, and I believe he went 8-0 against dogs. So like in 10 rounds, he played against 8 dogs players, and I think he crushed them. So like, that's going to be true. It's going to remain true. I was playing against Eliza this weekend, and she was like a travesty. Like, she's so hard to deal with as a dogs player. You basically have to hope your opponent turns her sideways so you could play a tramp and run into her and then set up your end of the scene and stuff like that, because otherwise she's just a menace. And like the 4/4 stats, even if you get 2 bodies off her, it's still pretty good. So yeah, she just represents a ton of power and a ton of things. But of course, this is a Headless Horseman deck as well. He's one of the best removal cards in the format, you know? I think it's really powerful. It's very straightforward. Just comes in, does the job, gets rid of the things. Then, of course, we have Scrooge McDuck. This is one of the best Ruby cards printed in core rotation. Like, this card is just good in every single Ruby deck. It's scaling to the +1 strength, +1 is so very powerful. The ability to, like, pick up this card, maybe not as much in this format, but, like, the ability to get additional resources from Scrooge is really play dividends in Infinity and things like that. So this card is a menace. It just gets bigger. It gets more annoying. And it just really becomes a pain for your opponent to deal with. So this deck, I think, is really, really well positioned into most of the metagame. Obviously, it's a little scary into the other Amethyst decks, but maybe if you're the player playing this deck, you can work on that and really kind of just find your lines in those matchups to give yourselves a better chance. But again, if you're talking about an aggressive field, I don't think there's a better deck in the format that deals with the aggressive field than this one. Here we are with Amber, Steel, Toys. This is the top 4 this past weekend, played from TFM Orion. It's a deck that he picked up from a friend and a local, and I really wanted to shout it out because I think these are the coolest decks, right? These are the decks that are coming out. They're brand new to the metagame. They're also versions of the decks that we're going to see moving forward, right? Like having winning a Woody Jungle Guide with Woody Jungle Guy in your deck is like one of the coolest things you can be doing. JDZ did this last set championships with Tinkerbell. I think it's a little easier to do it with Woody, if I'm going to be honest. I think this card's just like actually very good, but it is really fun. Like his ability to let's get moving whenever this character quests, draw a card, and then you may play a character with 2 costs or less for free. I mean, like that engine is just so good. That's a perfectly timed win condition. It has a lot of vibes from, old, core constructed formats of, hey, sets 1 through 4, where we're just trying to shift a Robin Hood, and like just do like some broken things with our shift characters. Like that's really the vibes here. Even like a shift queen, like just getting the vibes of getting these shift characters in play, having them progress the game forward, having them let you scale and snowball forward. I think it's really fun and really cool to have that back in Lorcana, and that's exactly what Woody Jungle Guy represents. A card like Ham is a card that I was very, very high on during the reveal season, but he's an inkable Lantern. Like, he's an inkable Willow. He's not, obviously, Grandmother Willow, right? Like, you can't use him the turn you play out. You can't get that extra 1-drop. But the idea that you can put him into play, and he's a toy, and he exerts to pay 1 less, really does synergize with the Toys deck so much, which I think is really cool and really interesting. Obviously, if you're looking for the best possible line here, on turn 3, we get to shift in a Woody, we get to quest a Woody, draw a card, and then we get to drop a Rex Protective Dinosaur and have a bodyguard in play to protect the Woody, protect the Ham, right? Because now if we want to, we can also use the Ham, play another 1-drop or just quest, and really just go so far wide early on in the game is very, very powerful. I think this deck is cool. I think it does a lot of things that you wanted to be doing. I still think cards like Aerial Ethereal Voice are very powerful here. I think Angel, the Experiment 626, is very powerful here. Like, it's just getting you like the ability to do all these crazy things. So I think that this is a really fun deck. If you're looking to do something different, if you're looking to still try to play some Amber Steel, this is a kind of, I think, a way to really get away and do that. All right, now of course, Sapphire Emerald. This is the deck that Joe Quigley, Pandemonium Heart, he was able to top, I think he was a runner-up. He lost in the finals with this list, And of course, it's his bread and butter. He's been playing Sapphire, Emerald, basically the entire core rotation. So it was nice to see he was able to come out, have success in a tournament up near, in Canada, of course. So this is another deck that we've seen this win DLCs. What's happening? Honestly, not much has changed, right? The only big change here is Milo Thatch. 7 cost, inkable, 5 strength, 5 willpower, 3 lore. My god, is that massive. He's got ward, and he has 2 abilities, the Scholar's Gambit. When you play this character, you may choose and discard a card to return chosen character to their player's hand, and then at the end of the turn, if 2 or more cards were put in the discard this turn, you get to draw a card. So if you get, obviously if you sing a song, if you play out of the Azurite Sea, you get there. It happens more times than you think. But definitely the turn that you play him, it happens more turns because you're discarding a card when you get to play him to bounce something. So I think this card is really, really great. It's also very good at just closing the door. This deck closes the door better than any other control deck. Like having a 3 ward, like a 3 lore character on a ward and evasive that just gets the turn sideways, gain the lore, and when they come into play, they're either banishing or disrupting and bouncing things. Such a powerful couple of cards to help you kind of close out games. John Silver, I think, is still a giant menace to it all. And of course, Clarabelle, listen, she's not going to be here much longer. You may as well have fun with her while you can, because this card is absolutely insane as well. So having Clarabelle still as that that draw engine, I think, is a big deal. I do think that this deck isn't going anywhere anytime fast. It's in a good position. It has a pretty good, successful game plan and everything. And at the end of the day, you just have one of the best board wipe combos in the format. So whenever you hit it, on those games, you win. So big shout out to Quigs for this really cool deck list again. Now we have a couple of Amber Ruby Toys decks. Now, I'm going to come back in for a second because right now I have 2 different Amber Ruby decks showing up. One's Toys and one's Boost. They are both different and the same, right? And I think that's so cool because if we really look back at last set, Amber Ruby was like there, but it really wasn't. It didn't have any deep runs in tournaments, like it popped up here and there, but like nothing like crazy. So the idea that we went from it was almost there, it was being talked about, it was like kind of sort of being played to, no, this deck is like cool and there's variations of it. I think that's awesome. So as we take a look at the Amber Ruby Toys list, you can see here we have Sid Phillips, we got Jesse, and we have Babyhead. These are 3 cards that are going to be invaluable for Toys decks moving forward. Whether Jessie is in Amber Steel, Amber Emerald, or Amber Ruby, she will be great. And of course, Sid in Ruby Amber or even maybe Ruby Emerald will also be great. The same goes for Babyhead, but Babyhead also has some playability in some other off like ink toy decks as well, because he's not necessarily about toys, but he just works so well with all of these other ink combinations. So I really think that this is a fun deck. I think it's a very good and powerful deck, and it's really just, you get to play new cards. I think there's another thing here, right? Right now, everyone's focused on Infinity. No one's really focused on Core, but, within a month, we're going to be in rotation. If you take a look at this deck, like this deck is like 55, 56, I don't even know. I think it's almost the entire deck that goes through rotation. If I'm looking at this card for card, like real quick, I actually think this might be a 60 card deck that just pivots right into rotation. So like if you have a 60 card deck that's pivoting right into rotation, you're already ahead of the game. You're like, hey, I've already been playing this deck that was successful in core constructed before rotation. Now we got rotation. Spoilers, we already know we're getting more toys. We already know there's more Amber toys coming out. We've seen it. Like, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of the cards, but like we've seen the cards. So this is a great position for yourself to say, like, hey, I want to play a deck that's very well positioned in the metagame. It's a deck that probably beats up on dogs, and it's probably okay into like everything else. But I also get to have a month of repetition and create and form those habits for rotation. Like, that's a win-win for me. Like, huge deal if you're looking to play in early tournaments for rotation. There's a couple CCQs that happen like the week after rotation. So if you're playing any of those, I would actually suggest playing one of these decks, because you get a little free time, if you ask me, within a metagame of like playing these decks, getting more comfortable with these types of cards. But yeah, all in all, I think that this deck is sweet. I think all of the toys really interact. And by the way, don't forget, guys, we always have these decks in our Dreamborn. You can always find the link to the Dreamborn below. It's also more often than not in the pinned comment section if you're looking for specifically the decks here to copy, import right in the Duel Link and play the games for yourself, but you absolutely can do that. So, I just want to say that I think this deck is cool. I think Sid is doing really powerful things. Jesse is just doing really powerful things. Babyhead, really powerful things. All these other toys in combination. The synergy here is off the charts. I talk about it all the time. I really wish there was more archetype decks in Disney Lorcana. I think it is so cool at the idea that this is a 60 card toys deck in the game, all in, all out, all that synergy adding up, and just like really leaning in and finding a lot of success early on in the core constructed metagame. Hope that this deck really does kind of go further, and I hope it can kind of come up to speed with some of the other Amethyst decks and some like the Dogs decks and really show its worth. But this weekend it was able to win like a Woody, so it's already ahead of the game as far as I'm concerned. Now we'll take a look at the boost version here. So this is the Amber Ruby boost. I have to give a shout out to our good friend Charlie of the channel. She has her own channel called The Mad Chatter. Definitely check her out. But this was her list. She was a runner-up in the tournament. But this is another one. This is just the epitome of a dog's killer. And it's really fun. It's really well positioned. I think the deck got a little bit better this set. Had a couple more tools to really, to work with it. But the deck is all about Webby's Diary. That's right. That's a card that you probably never heard before. But it's a 3-cost inkable item and has the ability of latest entry. Whenever you put a card under one of your characters or locations, you may pay 1 to draw a card. That sounds like a lot of work. But the truth is that, like, if you look at Ariel, Ethereal Voice, you look at Scrooge McDuck here, you look at Aladdin, Barreling Thero, like, you have all of these characters that just get boosted. And when they get boosted, they do cool stuff. So, like, you just have this continuous draw engine. Of course, with the Ariel, you can double down on the draw engine because you have all these wonderful songs that you can sing. I think Liquidator is another card that really turns this deck on because it prevents your opponent from questing early. But you also have Della's Moon Lullaby. You also have Be Our Guest. You have like a really strong combination of things, because if you play a Liquidator on the draw going second, and then all of a sudden you're like, turn 2, I can sing Be Our Guest and like find the Mowgli, find the card that I want to, like, find my Scrooge McDuck and just set up the game moving forward, is great. But it also, on turn 3, you can sing Della's Moon Lullaby and then Sisu, an opposing character. Like, if your opponent's like, oh, I'm gonna be fine, I'm gonna dodge Sisu, and you're like, yeah, I'll just sing Della's Moon Lullaby, I'll banish your character with Sisu. Like, that's also a really big tempo play. So there's a lot going on here with this deck. There's a lot of unique interactions that I think is really well positioned. I think both of these decks are really sweet and super cool. Obviously, I'm a little bit more fan of the Toys version because I'm just like team archetype deck. But all in all, I think that both of these decks are cool. If you're looking to do something different, these are 2 decks that are definitely worth picking up and trying out. All right, now we have Ruby Sapphire Actions. This was the deck that I really, really wanted to play this past weekend. And I heard some mixed reviews about it, but it was really exciting to find that this was able to go and win a set championships this past weekend. I just think this deck has so many cool Ruby cards that we just haven't had the love for in the core rotation format. Lilo, causing an uproar. This card is absolutely, like, just amazing. It really is. 5-cost inkable, 4 strength, 4 willpower, 2 lore with Stompin' Time during your turn. If you played 3 or more actions this turn, you may play this character for free. And then, rawr, when you play this character, ready chosen character, they can't quest for the rest of the turn. This is a massive tempo swing card. It gets to be played for free, which is awesome, and then it gets to ready a character and let you just do the thing again. So if we ever set up these lines with Powerline, I mean, this is like ridiculous, right? But like, Powerline's massive ability is like, once during your turn, whenever this character sings the song, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, you may reveal a song with 9 costs or less and play it for free, put the rest in your bottom. You can literally just be like, all right, yeah, we're gonna, sing our song with Powerline, find another thing, play it for free, play another action, play the secondary action, and then boom, play a Lilo for free, ready your Powerline, and then just do it all over again. I mean, that's just bananas, right? Like, the combo there is just crazy. Really, really big pop-off turns, very similar to what dogs can really pop off on. But I really think this deck is cool. I think it's interesting. Olaf is another huge tempo card. Like, the idea that you can just play an Olaf and a Lilo in the same turn for like a very low value, get a big ready in, make your opponent lose 2 lore. I just think there's a lot going on with this deck that's very interesting. And it really is like one of those things that I'm so excited to see continue going forward. Even next stop Olympus is like a nice little cheeky combination with Power Line. There's a lot of cool stuff going on here. I think this deck has a lot of opportunity, and like this, I guess it takes me to a quick pivot of just like, hey, the problem with Core Constructed is that there just isn't or hasn't been a lot of reason to explore Core Constructed because we have 4 Infinity DLCs and none for Core Constructed. But like decks like this really make me believe there's a ton more going on in the format that like the general public is getting to see, because the grinders are just playing what they know is the best and perceived decks, and there's not a whole lot of creativity going around in the format. But seeing decks like this Sapphire Ruby be successful gives me hope that the format was not kind of just like 3 or 4 decks. I think that there is probably a little bit more. So if you're looking to explore, take an opportunity, pick up one of these decks, especially these decks towards the end of the video that I think are like dramatically different for the most part. You know, you want to play something new, you want to play something cool, you want to like really confuse your opponent at Zet Championships. I think the Emerald Ruby decks are going to do that. I think the Sapphire Ruby deck's going to do this. And I think that this Emerald Ruby deck that we're going to look at is also going to do this. Yeah, Emerald Ruby Leviathan. We got Return of Hercules. That's right, the set 7 legendary action. 5 cost inkable. Each player may reveal a character card from their hand and play it for free. That's right, we get to just put Leviathan into play for a measly 5 ink. He is the 10 cost uninkable 10/10 with 3 lore. And it's a machine. When you play this character, if 2 or more cards were put in the discard this turn, you may banish any number of chosen opposing characters, total of 10 strength or less. Of course, how do we get 2 cards in the discard pile? Well, the number one answer is this Gation Mullery. He is the 4 cost inkable, 2 strength, 5 willpower, 1 lore invasive with the ability Unearth. When this character quests, you may draw 2 cards and choose and discard 2 cards. He will instantly do it for you himself. He has evasive. He kind of sticks around. He's got 5 willpower, so he dodges the Thunderbolt. Really, this card's pretty great, I think, in general. But with just him alone, you can play the Return of the Hercules and then just banish your opponent's board. I think that's really cool and really unique. The rest of this deck is also kind of like working in that. A Bobby Zimmerowski you can play a Bobby, for 1, discard the card, and then play Return the Hercules, and then Return the Hercules also goes to the discard pile. So since 1 trigger from Bobby and 1 trigger from Return the Hercules, that will turn on your Leviathan as well. Just a lot of cool things that you can do here, and it just seems a lot of fun. This deck list looks great. This is another one that if I were really into set championships and I could go to a bunch of them, I would bring this deck because I think it's so sweet and so different. And I just want to like put a Leviathan. I'm going to be honest, guys. Like I think at some point in the future, I need to just like drop a Leviathan into play. It's just got to happen, I think. I think it would be a lot of fun. I think everyone's like really excited about those types of characters. And, Circle of Life is a deck that I've loved. I played Circle of Life for, like, the Winter Spell metagame, and I had a lot of fun with it. And this deck feels kind of close to that. We're in the same vein of just like, hey, I'm going to return to Hercules, drop my 10/10, and clear your board. Sounds cool, right? Thumbs up. So, I think if you are looking, this deck is sweet. For me, always looking to improve anything. I think, like, you could probably mesh around with the numbers here a little bit. Get a Prince Philip in here, you can easily just like do some damage finagling and then just drop a Prince Philip, which is basically can be the same as Leviathan in a lot of ways, as another way to board clear. If it's just like some other number of them, I think it's still pretty cool. But yeah, all in all, this is one of the more fun decks I've seen pop up. And yeah, this top 8 a set champs this weekend, so it's pretty sweet. Now, we have, last but not least, the most popular deck in the room. It is the most consistent, most played, got the best win percentage. It's Amethyst Amber Control. If you're looking for, like, the deck, right? Like, this is the deck online, and you're just looking to, hey, what does this deck look like? I do think there are different versions of this deck, but on average, I think this Raging Storm library version, shout out to Fumbles, he played a version of this to a day 2 in DLC Ghent. He's a real big friend of the channel. He actually came on here and we had a whole conversation about that type of deck. So if you want to check out more specifically about what this deck could offer you, then you should check out that video with Fumbles for sure. And here, the biggest difference for this list as opposed to last season, or the Winter Spell meta is Dale. Dale ready for his shot? Yeah, that spike suit. turning all your cards into bigger strength characters because of their willpower is massive. And of course, Ham the Piggy Bank. Before we were definitely, a Lantern deck, we were a Willow deck, we were doing all these things, it had a lot of uninkables in it, but now Ham being an inkable way to kind of like get Dale in play early. If you turn to Ham and then turn 3, you're like, all right, play my Dale, your Ham's a 3/3 now. So if they want to run in your Ham, it's getting something out of play. And if they don't, that's great, because you can play Ham again and then play your Elsa. Your Elsa comes into play, exerts a character, and then your Elsa is challenging for 5. Like, it's so good. It's so powerful. I also think this deck is one of the best Ohana Means Families decks. You also see World's Greatest Criminal Mind in here. It really works with the Lanwis. I've also seen versions of this deck that play Augustin, which is the 4-cost 3/5 or 3/6. I can't remember his exact stats, but he has support, and that card turns on World's Greatest Criminal Mind as well. I think there's a lot of really good things going on with this deck. I think it's very, very powerful. And it just doesn't shock me that this is one of the most played decks and one of the most successful decks on ladder. It is one of those. So with that, that was 10 decks from Set Championships that all won a Woody this past weekend. Either won a Woody or they won, the event itself. The Ruby Amethyst deck, Sapphire Amethyst, and Dogs were decks that all of us at TFM played to success this past weekend, picking up different wins and different victories. I was super excited to win my Woody playmat. I'm a big Toy Story fan. It was kind of on my bucket list to win a playmat this week or this month, and I didn't have a lot of opportunities to do it, if I'm going to be honest. I went and played on Sunday also, but I could never play more than 4 rounds no matter what, so I was always going to be like dropping from the tournament and leaving. I went like 1-1 and then conceded to a teammate and left. So like, I really didn't get to play on Sunday. I kind of just supported the game store, if I'm being honest. Giving the game store $20 so they continue to host Set Championships was more important to me than like not going at all. So all in all, I do hope you can find some love with this this format. I think that I showed 10 different decks, and if I'm being honest, that's not even all of them, right? Like, we didn't have an Amethyst steel, we didn't have a Sapphire steel. Those are 2 decks that I know were kind of successful this past weekend also picking up. There's different versions of Dogs, there's different versions of Sapphire Amethyst, different Amber Amethyst. So the format feels pretty wide. It might not be like, hey, if there was a DLC, it would be this wide. But at Set Championships, you do have a lot more freedom to bring that creativity and really explore and have fun with it. And I think that this deck, and like especially those last couple decks, like Emerald Ruby, Ruby Sapphire, like these decks are so off the walls. Even Amber Ruby Toys, like they're just decks that we haven't seen be successful at all in the core rotation. So it's so cool to like have something there for these decks. But yeah, hopefully this video helped you. If you did well last week in the Set Championships, let me know in the comments below what you played. I'd love to hear your stories. I was really excited to like bring these out and kind of show off these deck lists from players from all over the world. And I'm going to try my best to keep doing this as often as possible. But next week we do have DLC Indie. We're going back to the Infinity format. So it was a lot of fun to take a week off, play some core, get a little more familiar with the format so I can talk about it a little bit better. But we're going to be back to Infinity. If your next video coming out on the channel will be the Infinity Into the Wilds Unknown podcast. So if you're looking forward to hearing from that, definitely check that out. You're going to be hearing about the DLC Dortmund experience from the members of TFM that attended. So thank you guys so much for watching today. If you have not yet hit that like button, definitely hit subscribe if this video is helpful for you. And of course, share with your friends. Without further ado, thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you in the next video.